everybody, my name is Veronica, and today we are going to be doing some geometry. So today we are going to be doing some proofs. So right here we have two parallel lines cut by a transversal line, and these are lines L and K. And then, we have angles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So what we have to prove today is, given that line L, this line right here, is parallel to line K, we need to prove that the measure of angle 2 is congruent to the measure of angle 7. So, just a piece of advice, whenever we are proving things, it's always great to set up a table with statements on your left side and reasons on your other side. So, to start off proving this proof, you should always start off with the given statement, which is line L is parallel to line K. So, I'm just going to write that down quickly. Line L is parallel to line K. And a piece of advice, try to use the cursive L, because when you use just the regular L, looks like a 1, so you might get confused. And the reason for this is because it is given. Alright, so after this, we just try to find some reasons, and sometimes we use postulates to prove that line L is parallel to line K. So the first step is just obviously finding reasons. So as I look at these parallel lines cut by transversal, I see that we should find a common thread between 2 and 7. And something that would help out is angle 3. So by looking over here at these lines, I could see that angle 3 is corresponding with 7. So they're on the same side, and they're both on the top somewhat, well, on the left side of the parallel line. And yeah, and since they are corresponding, that means that they have the same angle measurement. So after seeing that, I could say that the measure of angle 3 is congruent to the measure of angle 7. And my reason is because lines are parallel, corresponding angles are congruent. Corresponding angles are congruent. So, after seeing that, since 3, as I said before, is a common thread between 2 and 7, let's try to find a way how it is related to 2. So now I see how angle 3 and angle 2 are vertical. So, they're vertical angles. So, knowing that vertical angles are congruent, I have another statement to say. So, I could write down that the measure of angle 3 is congruent to the measure of angle 2. And I could prove this because vertical angles are congruent. Alright, so now that I've proven that the measure of angle 3 is congruent to both the measure of angle 7 and measure of angle 2, I can now prove that the measure of angle 2 and the measure of angle 7 are congruent. So first, I'll write that down. But what is my reason? So there is a rule or a property called the transitive property. The transitive property I learned is that if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. So what we can see from that is that, for instance, say that angle 3 is the common thread, which is B. And let's say 7 is A, and that 2 is C. So let's plug this in. So if 2 equals 3 and 3 equals 7, then the measure of angle 2 is congruent to the measure of angle 7. So as we can see that this rule, the transitive property, works for our situation up here. And that's how we could prove that the measure of angle 2 is congruent to measure of angle 7. So just write down our reason, which is the transitive property. And we are done. And we have proven that the measure of angle 2 is congruent to the measure of angle 7. And don't forget, whenever you're done with your table, you write QED, which means thus it is finished. Well, you don't have to do that last part, but I just did it just because. And yeah, that's how you prove that the measure of angle 2 is congruent to the measure of angle 7. So let's go over this one more time. So line L is parallel to line K. That's given. And the measure of angle 3 is congruent to the measure of angle 7 because if lines are parallel, corresponding angles are congruent. So as you can see, 3 is corresponding with 7, so they're congruent. Then next, we went on and used our common thread angle 3, and we said that the measure of angle 3 is congruent to the measure of angle 2 because vertical angles are congruent. And as we could see, the measure of angle 3 is congruent to the measure of angle 2, and well, since they are vertical to each other, that means that the measure of their angles are congruent. And after we came to that decision, we could finally say that the measure of angle 2 is congruent to the measure of angle 7 because of the transitive property, which states A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C, and which we proved that if the measure of angle 2 equals 3 and the measure of angle 3 equals the measure of angle 7, then the measure of angle 2 is congruent to angle 7. So thanks for watching, and join me next time for, I don't know, probably something else. Have a great day to whoever's watching this, and bye.